Hey guys, Jack, here again. So this is kind of the final of the final of the final of the final, kind of. I don't know if we're going to be able to have enough room on this, so I'll get straight to it. We last left that there was a neurologist who wanted to do the EEG, stick the needles in me, and the needles and shock me, and then they wanted to do a brain scan in order to confirm that I had a psychological disorder called the convergence disorder. To this day, I don't know how they would have been able to. I think they were just trying to build up, Workman's Comp was just trying to build up the cases against me, so they could take it to a judge and say, hey, listen, we got 6 medical professionals here to say there's nothing wrong with her, dot, dot, dot. My attorney had given up on me, had really kind of just dropped the ball. He said, oh, whenever we had a case, he says, oh, you don't have to come, you don't have to come. And I said, no, I'm going to be there because, I know my case better than anybody, better than the attorney, better than even my family. I know what I've been through. And so I always went. And whenever I went, I made sure that I got the things that I needed to get whenever we went to court to fight for something like medication or therapy or an evaluation. We always got it. I was late one time. I was late. And the one time that I was late, it had to do with mileage. Workman's Comp was shorting us. Because at the time, I was in so much pain, like I said, even breathing, that going over bumps caused me so much pain and aggravation to my body that it would exhaust me. So that when I got to physical therapy, I was too tired to do really to do my best. And so there's a lot of construction. They're always working on some road. And so my husband was constantly having to figure out which roads were not under construction, which were not to find the smoothest roads, basically. And it was not necessarily the freeway. So sometimes we would have to go out of our way to skip the bumpy roads because going over even a speed bump caused me so much pain. I would bawl whenever we went over a bump because it hurt so bad. And so the one time that I didn't go to court with my attorney was to fight for mileage. And I think it was like the difference over 1 or 2 miles. They were trying to short us. And, it doesn't sound like it would be a big deal. It actually ended up being more like 10 or 15 miles they ended up shorting us because I was going to physical therapy every single day. So it was like 1 or 2 miles every day. Now, that doesn't sound like much, at 50 or 60 cents a mile. But you add that up every single day, 5 or 6 days a week for a month. And that adds up to $20 to $50. And don't get me wrong, but $20 to $50 is groceries on the table and a little closer to a full tank of gas. And so it was just frustrating because my attorney actually had the nerve to come out and he looked at me and he says, I just don't even know why we're here. He says, I am not going to fight over 1 mile. And I'm sitting here going, you're my attorney. If I need 1 mile fought over, it should be your job to do it. And don't get me wrong, but if that money were coming out of your pocket, you don't think he would fight for $20 to $50 a month But it was okay because it was coming out of my pocket. But coming out of your pocket, that I don't think anybody would be okay with that. If somebody came up to you and said, "Give me $20, give me $50 every month," for what? You know? So that was money we ended up having to pay. And my husband was so frustrated with it that we ended up just eating it every month for, a couple of months. You know, like I said, it was very frustrating. So I was getting to the point, especially with this neurologist, she wanted to do these tests to confirm that I had a psychological condition. And then her mysterious behavior towards answering questions unless she was, dispositioned to do so. And then what was really, really weird was I tried to get a copy of my records from, and a copy of what she wrote in her records, and she refused to give me a copy of those records, and her staff refused to give me a copy of those records, and Workman's Comp refused to give me a copy of those records, and it was really, really interesting that nobody, it didn't matter, like if I signed a piece of paper, they would not give me those the records of my visit with her, and so that was a little interesting, a little frustrating. But what ended up happening was I was starting to wonder and starting to believe that maybe I was doing this to myself, that I was causing, my disability and causing things to be harder. Maybe I really could walk. And it was horribly frustrating because I had seen 6 different doctors. They had drilled this into my brain, drilled it into my brain that there was nothing wrong with me. And I was starting to believe it. I was starting to believe it. And one day my mom came up to me and she said, "Kim, I know you. I have known you since, you were born. I've known you. And I know that you would not be in that wheelchair right now if you absolutely didn't have to be in that wheelchair. You would be out doing what you were doing before you got hurt. You would be out attempting to, conquer the world. That you would not be in that wheelchair if you didn't have to be." So she was taking a trip, and she was going to actually visit a friend of ours. He's kind of a distant friend. He actually helped bless me when I was a baby. Uh, Amazing, amazing doctor, spinal surgeon. And she says, "Kim, I need you to get me a copy of all of your films, all of your records, everything. And I'm going to take them up to the spinal surgeon and have him evaluate." He said that he would do that for you. He said that he would do that for us. And I was not a little nervous. I was very nervous, to be completely honest with you. I was very, very nervous about it. And I said, "Mom, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can give you these records." I said, "I am terrified." I said, "What if? I, I don't know that I can handle having another doctor look at me and tell me that there's absolutely nothing wrong with me." And she looked at me and she says, "Can you give me those records?" And like a good girl, I obeyed. What a good mommy. I'm so blessed. I really, really am. I've got a great mom. So what ended up happening was she took my records up to this doctor friend of ours, and this was really kind of ironic because this was around the exact same time that we had our appointment with this neurologist. And so this doctor friend, my mom gives him the records, and he calls my husband and I on, we're just getting back from physical therapy. I had actually just made my appointment for my brain scan that day, and he called me not 2 days after he got the records, and he said over the phone, he says, I know what your problem is. I know what's wrong with you. And I'm sitting here going, are you kidding me? This has got to be a joke, right? I mean, I've seen 6 medical professionals, and none of them could figure out what was wrong with me. And do you know what my problem is? I mean, it must be something, for 6 different doctors to have missed it. And he says, yeah, I know what your problem is. He says, the first surgery that you had never took, didn't work. My back never fused. Here it was, 2.5 years later, and I'm just finding out that my back didn't fuse. And I'm sitting here going, you've got to be kidding me. He said, actually, Kim, it was pretty blatantly obvious what was wrong. It was blatantly obvious. It's so obvious you can absolutely see in the C2 myelogram that your back never fused. And he says, but I only looked at your films for like 5 minutes. That's it. And I'm sitting here going, I cannot believe what I'm hearing. Like, is this a joke? Where's the camera? And he said, and you've got some loose screws. And I said, yeah, very funny. I know, the doctors have been telling me I've got loose screws. They've been telling me that for 9 months. And he's like, no, you've got loose screws. Like, when they did the first surgery, they put, here's the disc, and then they put a little bit of bone graft in there. And the bone graft is supposed to grow, but until it grows, they put a plate here, okay, to kind of stabilize. It's kind of like putting a cast on a broken arm. That's the way it was explained to me. So here's your disc. They put a plate here, and then on the plate, they put 2 screws up at the top, to secure it to the vertebrae above, and then 2 screws underneath to secure it, the plate, to the vertebrae, while that bone is supposed to be growing inside of here. Well, with mine, the bone never grew inside of here. And so the screws that were holding on, whenever I moved, they would wiggle back and forth and back and forth. And he says, so you've got loose screws. He says, but I only looked at your films for like 5 minutes, and that was it. And so my husband and I, we went home. And we said, well, I wonder if we can see it ourselves. He said he saw it on the films. I wonder if we can see it. So we're almost at 15 minutes, and that's where I've been cutting my videos off at. So to hear kind of the conclusion, I'm going to have to turn, sorry.